Major John Rush and Jacques Guillaume, Blood at Notre Dame. Montreal, Quebec, June 14, 1995. The city smelled of gun oil and lilies. Jacques Guillaume stood on the steps of Notre Dame Basilica in Old Montreal, watching limousines glide past like black sharks. The wedding of Barry Morty to Isabelle Rizzuto was the event of the season. Half the Montreal underworld, several compromised city councilors, and even a few nervous union leaders had shown up in their best suits. Jacques had been investigating the Rizzuto family for months. What had started as a simple missing persons case involving a young waitress had led him deep into the family's growing control over construction contracts, drug routes from New York, and the port. The Rizzutos weren't just another ethnic gang anymore. They were becoming the Canadian arm of the Bonanno family's decaying empire. And Barry Morty was the bridge. The New York connection. Major John Rush arrived 2 days before the wedding, stepping out of a nondescript car near Jacques' office with the calm lethality of a man who had buried too many bodies. "I came because of the steakhouse," Rush said without greeting. Jacques raised an eyebrow. "Sparks Steakhouse, 1985. "Not just that one," Rush replied, lighting a cigarette. "There have been 4 major hits in New York since '88. Machine guns in public. The Bonannos are bleeding out and looking north. Barry Morty is their attempt to secure Montreal as a safe haven. If this wedding solidifies the alliance, the Rizzutos will flood your city with heroin and guns. I've seen what they did in New York. I won't let them do it here." Jacques studied the older American. He knew Rush's reputation, the quiet soldier who had spent decades doing the work governments denied. He also knew the major had lost friends in those New York massacres. Family history and the investigation. Over the next 48 hours, the 2 men dug deep. Jacques used his local contacts. Rush called in old favors from men who still owed him from the 1980s. They uncovered the full history. The Rizzuto family had risen in the power vacuum left after the Catroni era. Vito Rizzuto had carefully cultivated ties to the Bonanno family in New York. Barry Morty was a mid-level Bonanno enforcer who had distinguished himself during the bloody internal wars of the late '80s, including his alleged involvement in cleaning up after the Sparks Steakhouse hit on Paul Castellano. Barry wasn't just marrying for love. He was marrying to cement a new northern pipeline. Heroin from the Golden Triangle through Montreal's port, guns moving south, and construction rackets that would launder millions. On the eve of the wedding, they got their biggest break. One of Jacques' informants revealed that several key New York shooters had flown in for security. The Rizzutos were planning to use the wedding as cover for a major consolidation of power, including the elimination of 2 rival crews in Montreal. Rush's eyes went flat when he heard that. "Enough," he said quietly. "They want to bring New York rules to Montreal. We'll give them a New York answer." The wedding night. The ceremony at Notre Dame was opulent, a deliberate show of respectability. But the real party happened afterward at a heavily guarded estate in the West Island. Rush and Jacques struck just after midnight. The major went in first, cold and methodical. Years of watching innocent people die in New York steakhouse hits, car bombings, and hits on families had eroded whatever restraint he once had. When he found Barry Morty celebrating with his new Rizzuto in-laws, something inside him finally broke. What followed was brutal but precise. Rush personally put down 3 of the New York shooters who had participated in the Sparks-era massacres. He left clear messages on the bodies, a quiet declaration that the old rules of impunity no longer applied in Montreal. Jacques Guillaume moved through the chaos with grim professionalism. He didn't enjoy it, but he understood. He disabled escape vehicles, secured evidence, and made sure the worst offenders, the ones directly tied to trafficking young women through the port, would never operate again. When it was over, the estate was silent except for the sound of distant sirens. Barry Morty, The groom who thought marrying into Montreal royalty would protect him did not make it to the honeymoon. The morning after, Jacques met Rush at a quiet diner near the river as dawn broke. "You went too far, Major," Jacques said, stirring his coffee. "This wasn't clean, this was war." Rush stared out the window, his face tired but unrepentant. "New York let those animals run wild for decades. I watched friends die in steakhouse booths because no one had the stomach to do what was necessary. I won't make the same mistake here." Jacques was quiet for a long time. "I don't like it," he finally said. "But I understand it. Dead mobsters can't traffic girls. Dead shooters can't bring their machine guns north. Montreal isn't New York. Not yet." Rush nodded. "Keep it that way." Aftermath. The Notre Dame wedding massacre shocked Montreal. The Rizzuto family went into a defensive crouch for years. The Banano pipeline was badly damaged. Investigations followed, but the trail cleverly led back to unknown New York rivals, exactly as Rush had arranged. Jacques Guillaume continued his work with a heavier heart. He didn't fully approve of the Major's methods, but he couldn't deny the results. For a while, the streets were a little safer. Major John Rush disappeared back into the shadows, another ghost in a long line of men who did what governments would not. But both men knew the truth. The mob never truly died. It only waited for the next ambitious fool to feed it. And when that day came, the quiet Canadian detective and the old American soldier would be watching.